Interpretation of Ashwini Nakshatra. When the moon is placed in Ashwini Nakshatra and is unafflicted, it brings a bright emotional tone, quick healing, enthusiasm, and an instinctive drive for new beginnings. As a benefic, moon here thrives when supported by Jupiter or Venus, enhancing Ashwini's impulsive energy with emotional steadiness. The person may have healing gifts, a passion for movement, or a fondness for starting fresh emotionally. However, if moon is conjoined with malefics like Saturn or Ketu, emotional turbulence, detachment, or rash decisions may result, impairing Ashwini's pioneering spirit. Venus in Ashwini Nakshatra lends charm, sensual allure, and artistic creativity to the native, especially when placed in a Kendra or Kona and influenced by other benefics. Venus here becomes expressive and passionate in love, leaning toward fast connections and romantic experimentation. If Venus, however, is afflicted by Mars or conjoined with Rahu, it may lead to obsessive relationships, overindulgence in sensual pleasures, or aesthetic distractions that lack stability. Jupiter, when placed in Ashwini, magnifies the nakshatra's healing and guiding potential. As the planet of wisdom, Jupiter aligns with Ashwini's Ketu rulership to channel spiritual or dharmic initiative. When well placed, especially in its own or exaltation sign, Jupiter enhances the native's leadership through ethical pioneering and innate optimism. But when afflicted by Rahu or Saturn, the native may pursue misguided beliefs or overextend themselves in reckless ventures under the illusion of spiritual justification. Mars, the planetary ruler of Ashwini's sign Aries, when placed in this nakshatra becomes a double-edged sword. On the benefic side, it grants speed, courage, and extraordinary initiative, especially in sports, medicine, or entrepreneurship. But when afflicted or placed in Dashtanas, 6th, 8th, 12th, Mars intensifies impulsiveness, aggression, or risk-prone behavior. If aspected by Saturn, the Martian drive may turn into frustration or suppressed rage, distorting Ashwini's natural spontaneity. Saturn in Ashwini is a difficult placement. As a natural malefic, Saturn restricts the instinctive momentum of Ashwini, creating internal conflict between inertia and the drive to begin. If well placed in a trinal or Kendra house and aspected by benefics, Saturn may bring disciplined progress and innovation. But when conjoined with Rahu or occupying Dastana houses, Saturn's influence can result in karmic delays, health blockages, or psychological resistance to change. Rahu in Ashwini exaggerates the nakshatra's impulsive and forward-pushing tendencies. As a shadow planet, it can distort the pure intentions of Ashwini into obsessive desires to control or dominate in the name of progress. The native may become a compulsive starter, initiating many things but failing to complete them. When aspected by benefics like Jupiter, Rahu's energy can be harnessed for unconventional innovation and radical healing paths. Ketu, the ruler of Ashwini Nakshatra, when placed here, emphasizes detachment, spiritual journeys, and karmic breakthroughs. Its presence gives sharp intuition and the ability to start anew on a soul level. However, if conjoined with Mars or Saturn, this can lead to volatility, self-isolation, or accidents due to impulsive behavior. When supported by Jupiter or Venus, Ketu here helps dissolve egoic patterns and awaken the path of healing or liberation. Mercury in Ashwini is highly contextual. Its outcome depends on planetary associations. When conjoined with benefics like Jupiter or Venus, Mercury lends brilliance in speech, intellectual curiosity, and entrepreneurial spark. If influenced by malefics like Rahu or Mars, Mercury may become restless, sarcastic, or overly cunning. In its exalted or own sign, Mercury in Ashwini supports youthful energy and communication, especially in fields like writing, media, or rapid learning environments. Interpretation of Ashwini Nakshatra, house placement context. When the lord of Ashwini's nakshatra ruler Ketu is placed in a Kendra, 1st, 4th, 7th, 10th, or Kona, 1st, 5th, 9th house, the Ashwini energy becomes empowered to act swiftly and purposefully. For instance, if Mars, sign lord of Aries, is placed in the 10th house and the moon is in Ashwini, the native may become a pioneering professional, someone who leads with instinct and initiates bold career shifts. The 10th being a Kendra strengthens Ashwini's impulse into social recognition through independent action. If Venus is placed in Ashwini and Venus rules the 5th house, say, for Capricorn ascendant, and is itself placed in the 9th house, Kona, this connects romantic and creative impulses with higher wisdom or travel. Ashwini's urge to initiate is expressed as love for spontaneous exploration, artistic learning, or philosophical love. The nakshatra expresses well here due to both Venusian and conic strength. Such natives might fall in love quickly during travels or pursue creative foreign education paths. Conversely, if the lord of the Ashwini placed planet is in a Dashtana, 6th, 8th, or 12th, the nakshatra tends to suffer affliction. Take Jupiter in Ashwini for a Gemini ascendant. Jupiter rules the 7th and 10th houses, but if it's placed in the 6th, it may show professional struggles initiated by impulsiveness, litigation, or overpromising in partnerships. Ashwini's otherwise noble beginnings can get mired in power dynamics or delays, especially with Ketu's detachment modifying Jupiter's expansiveness. Now consider Mercury placed in Ashwini, ruling the 10th house for Virgo ascendant, but Mercury itself is placed in the 12th house. This debilitates the nakshatra's drive to manifest in the world. The native may have brilliant ideas or intentions to start ventures, but fail to execute them practically due to mental fatigue, hidden enemies, or karmic distractions. Afflictions from Rahu or Saturn would intensify disconnection from material results. If Saturn is placed in Ashwini and rules the 6th house for Leo ascendant, the native may be prone to health issues stemming from burnout or obsessive action. Though Saturn's placement in a Kendra like the 4th might slow impulsive behaviors through discipline and delay, if placed in the 8th, the Ashwini energy becomes trapped in sudden transformations, emotional upheaval, or karmic debts linked to action and responsibility. Mars, as the sign lord of Aries, plays a critical role in interpreting Ashwini placements. For example, if Mars rules the 1st and 8th houses, Scorpio ascendant, and is placed in the 5th house, Akona, and the moon is in Ashwini, this would channel Ashwini's drive into leadership roles in creativity or children. The native may act as a revolutionary teacher or creative entrepreneur, with karmic lessons in ego detachment and maturity through initiative. Let's say Rahu is in Ashwini, and Mercury rules both the 5th and 2nd houses, Taurus ascendant, and is placed in the 6th house. Rahu here could cause distorted use of intelligence, manipulating information or finances to overpower adversaries. Ashwini's swiftness becomes tainted by clever scheming or hurried decisions. However, if Mercury instead were in the 5th house, its Kona nature would uplift Rahu's energy into inventive, unconventional learning paths. Finally, if Jupiter is in Ashwini for a Cancer ascendant and rules 6th and 9th houses, but is placed in the 1st house, this is a powerful position. The native becomes a dharmic healer, someone who leads with instinctive wisdom. Ashwini thrives when its planetary placements serve a purpose larger than the ego. The placement in a Kendra adds visibility, while 9th lordship and Ketu's spiritual undertone bring mentorship, spiritual travel, or divine timing to new beginnings. Interpretation of Magha Nakshatra. When the moon is placed in Magha Nakshatra and supported by benefics like Jupiter or Venus, it bestows emotional nobility, pride in heritage, and a natural sense of leadership. Ruled by Ketu and symbolized by a royal throne, Magha carries ancestral strength and karmic authority. A benefic moon here creates individuals who emotionally connect with tradition, lineage, and a desire to leave a lasting legacy. If afflicted by Saturn, Rahu, or Mars, the moon in Magha may result in excessive pride, emotional aloofness, or attachment to outdated structures, manifesting as inner insecurity masked by control. Venus in Magha merges aesthetic sensibility with regality and a refined sense of pride. When Venus is well placed in angular or trinal houses and supported by Jupiter, it produces gracious individuals with a royal flair in love, fashion, and artistic tastes. Venus in Magha exudes elegance and a desire to maintain high standards in relationships. However, if afflicted, Venus may turn vain, status-driven, or emotionally rigid, prioritizing appearances over emotional depth. Jupiter in Magha magnifies the nakshatra's dharmic weight. This placement, when supported and strong, creates wise leaders, cultural preservers, or those devoted to teaching principles rooted in tradition. Jupiter here gives high moral authority and the ability to lead through philosophy or service to one's lineage. However, when afflicted or placed in Dushtana houses, it may turn into arrogance, masked as righteousness, or stagnation due to excessive attachment to dogma. Mars in Magha gives strong ambition, courage, and a sense of entitlement toward leadership roles. When well placed, this produces warriors, reformers, or administrators who carry generational strength and fight for their legacy. However, when Mars is afflicted, it may result in authoritarian tendencies, volatile ego, or aggressive behavior justified through family pride or tradition. Emotional impulse is filtered through hierarchical thinking, which can either protect or limit evolution. Saturn in Magha solidifies respect for rules, structures, and family duty. If well placed, it produces legacy builders, long-term strategists, and disciplined elders. Saturn's sober energy channels Magha's pride into productive service. But when Saturn is afflicted, it can result in emotional coldness, harsh judgment, or guilt related to family expectations. The native may feel bound by ancestral pressure, leading to delays in self-expression or suppressed individuality. Rahu in Magha exaggerates the hunger for status, legacy, or leadership. If placed in good houses and supported by Jupiter or Mercury, this produces powerful public figures, influencers, or innovators who rise by aligning with tradition but adding their own disruptive flair. However, when afflicted, Rahu's influence in Magha can lead to an obsession with power, entitlement, or status at the expense of emotional intimacy and humility. Ketu in Magha brings deep karmic detachment from recognition or inherited authority. These individuals may have been kings or holders of power in past lives and now carry an inner disinterest toward fame or hierarchy. If well supported, Ketu in Magha produces sages, renunciates, or wise guides who lead without needing applause. But if afflicted, the native may struggle with self-worth, difficulty embracing leadership, or subconscious sabotage of their social rise. Mercury in Magha produces articulate communicators who speak with command and reverence. When supported by Jupiter or Venus, Mercury here expresses legacy through storytelling, media, law, or policy. The native is often skilled in diplomatic negotiation, historical research, or linguistic refinement. However, when afflicted, especially by Rahu or Mars, Mercury may become boastful, overly strategic, or use words to control rather than inspire, diminishing Magha's nobility through cunning behavior. Interpretation of Magha Nakshatra, house placement context. When Ketu, the ruler of Magha Nakshatra, is placed in a Kendra, 1st, 4th, 7th, 10th, or Kona, 1st, 5th, 9th, the karmic energy of Magha expresses with visible authority, intuitive detachment, and ancestral gravity. For instance, for Leo ascendant, if Ketu is placed in the 10th house and Moon is in Magha, the native may inherit leadership roles or positions of public responsibility that feel predestined. Magha's connection to legacy and heritage becomes the native's professional compass, pushing them to act in service of their bloodline, institution, or tradition. If Venus is placed in Magha and rules the 3rd and 10th houses for Libra ascendant, and Venus is in the 9th house, Kona, the native may channel Magha's pride and artistic elegance into dharmic learning, creative teaching, or leadership through culture. The 9th house grants philosophical expansion to Venus's refined Magha expression, creating graceful diplomats, orators, or designers whose work reflects ancient values or luxury grounded in history. When planetary lords of Magha-linked placements reside in Dushtana houses, 6th, 8th, or 12th, the pride and dignity associated with Magha may become karmically tested. For instance, if Mercury is in Magha and rules the 2nd and 11th houses for Virgo ascendant, but is placed in the 12th house, the native may feel disconnected from their ancestral identity or experience speech and recognition setbacks. They may struggle with asserting their authority or suffer karmic exile from family or status, which they must learn to rise above through detachment and spiritual insight. Now consider Jupiter in Magha for Sagittarius ascendant, ruling the 1st and 4th houses, and placed in the 5th house, Kona. This is an ideal placement for a dharmic influencer or cultural educator. The native expresses Magha's nobility through children, art, or teaching. Their legacy becomes one of wisdom, education, and moral courage, guided by the blessings of past life authority and an intuitive sense of destiny. If Mars is in Magha and rules the 9th and 4th houses for Aries ascendant and is placed in the 7th house, Kendra, the native may dominate in partnerships, leadership roles, or legal settings. Magha's royal influence paired with Mars's drive creates assertive leaders or warriors with a traditional code. However, if Mars is afflicted, they may become dogmatic, control-driven in marriage, or face conflict due to ancestral pride overriding emotional sensitivity. Suppose Saturn is in Magha for Gemini ascendant, ruling the 8th and 9th houses, and is placed in the 6th house. Here, ancestral responsibility may turn into karmic labor, service obligations, or chronic battles with inherited burdens. Magha's theme of pride is tempered by Saturn's humbling grind. If well supported, this native becomes a silent pillar in institutions, preserving legacy through steady service. If afflicted, the person may feel overburdened by family duty or find it difficult to carve their identity away from lineage. If Rahu is in Magha and Ketu is placed in the 4th house for Scorpio ascendant, the native is pulled between personal roots and a desire to be publicly significant. Rahu in Magha may create obsession with status, while Ketu in the 4th signals detachment from emotional grounding. The native may struggle to feel at home unless they achieve external recognition. However, with Jupiter's support, this combination can produce figures who transform family legacy into public service. Finally, if the moon is in Magha for Cancer ascendant and rules the 1st house, placed in the 2nd house, the native becomes a preserver of tradition through speech, values, or family business. Magha in the 2nd blends royal tone with emotional sensitivity, allowing the person to express ancestral knowledge through voice wealth or culinary, cultural heritage. Afflicted moon here may struggle with the weight of expectation from family or misuse speech as a tool of control. Interpretation of Mula Nakshatra. When the moon is placed in Mula Nakshatra and supported by benefics like Jupiter or Venus, it creates a deeply transformative, truth-seeking emotional nature. Ruled by Ketu and symbolized by the roots tied together, Mula represents destruction, uprooting, and foundation-level introspection. A benefic moon here fosters emotional depth, detachment from material illusions, and a powerful drive to understand life's root causes. However, if afflicted, especially by Saturn, Rahu, or Mars, the moon in Mula may feel emotionally torn, rebellious, or destabilized by inner crises and a subconscious need to break what it cannot trust. Venus in Mula expresses sensuality with depth and beauty with a longing for spiritual authenticity. When placed in Kendra or Kona and supported by Ketu or Jupiter, Venus here produces passionate individuals with an urge to transcend superficial relationships. Love becomes a path to self-transformation. But when afflicted, Venus in Mula may lead to emotional burnout, detachment in love, or intense karmic romantic experiences that begin with passion and end in abrupt disillusionment. Jupiter in Mula seeks philosophical roots and spiritual truths. This placement, when strong, generates reformers, scholars, or dharmic teachers who dare to challenge conventional beliefs to reach fundamental truths. Jupiter lends optimism and vision to Mula's deconstructive tendencies. But if afflicted, especially by Ketu or placed in Dushtana houses, Jupiter here may suffer from dogmatic detachment, inner nihilism, or spiritual pride cloaked in aloofness. Mars in Mula acts with fearless intensity and fierce independence. This combination can produce truth crusaders, activists, or researchers who aren't afraid to destroy in order to purify or restart. Mars in Mula thrives in crisis situations. When well placed, it gives a penetrating willpower. When afflicted, however, it may lead to destructive tendencies, emotional volatility, or rebellion without constructive direction, resulting in burnout or alienation. Saturn in Mula teaches detachment through endurance. When placed favorably, Saturn here produces mystics, healers, or disciplined philosophers who walk solitary but powerful paths. Saturn brings structure to Mula's root-cutting nature. If afflicted, Saturn may cause chronic suffering, emotional numbness, or suppressed grief, especially when duty collides with the soul's urge to destroy false security. Rahu in Mula can generate obsessive digging into taboo, power structures, or hidden knowledge. Supported by Jupiter or Venus, Rahu gives intense researchers, shadow workers, or occult influencers. But when afflicted, it amplifies identity crises, emotional chaos, or an overwhelming urge to destroy bonds before they deepen, out of fear of losing autonomy. Ketu in Mula is at home and brings the potential for deep karmic detachment and spiritual freedom. When well placed, Ketu here creates ascetics, renunciants, or healers who guide others through inner death and rebirth. If afflicted, however, it may bring emotional detachment to an extreme, making the native feel perpetually disconnected, rootless, or unrecoverable from past traumas. Mercury in Mula gives a sharp intellect focused on inquiry, unmasking, and cutting through illusion. Supported by Jupiter, it creates psychologists, researchers, or philosophers who deconstruct reality with precise speech. When afflicted, especially by Rahu or Saturn, Mercury here may turn cynical, cutting, or emotionally blunt, using logic to mask pain or detachment to avoid intimacy. Interpretation of Mula Nakshatra, house placement context. When Ketu, the ruler of Mula Nakshatra, is placed in a Kendra, 1st, 4th, 7th, or Kona, 1st, 5th, 9th, the intense, uprooting energy of Mula finds channels for transformative leadership, spiritual depth, and karmic purpose. For Sagittarius ascendant, if Ketu is placed in the 10th house and Moon is in Mula, the native may experience a detached yet impactful public life. They often engage in roles that challenge tradition, break systems, or involve profound research, healing, or spiritual reform. Recognition may come not through ambition, but through inward mastery or selfless service. If Venus is in Mula and rules the 6th and 11th houses for Aquarius ascendant and is placed in the 5th house, Kona, the native expresses deep creative intelligence, emotionally charged romance, or karmic relationships. Venus here explores beauty that arises from loss, pain, or emotional transformation. When supported by Ketu or Jupiter, it gives artists, therapists, or performers who evoke catharsis through creation. If afflicted, the native may experience heartbreaks or love that demands emotional surrender and inner deconstruction. When a planet in Mula has its lord placed in a Dushtana house, 6th, 8th, or 12th, Mula's transformative themes become karmically loaded with potential for emotional crises, detachment from comfort, or liberation through suffering. For example, if Mercury is in Mula and rules the 1st and 10th houses, for Gemini ascendant, but is placed in the 8th house, the native may carry intense mental burdens or go through psychological upheaval. However, this also grants deep insight into taboo, death, or healing fields if Mercury is supported by benefics like Jupiter. Now consider Mars in Mula for Leo ascendant, ruling the 4th and 9th houses, and placed in the 1st house, Kendra. This placement infuses the native with fearless drive and karmic power. Mula's root-cutting force merges with Mars's courage, producing bold, independent individuals who challenge traditions or social constructs. They may embody a warrior sage archetype. If afflicted, however, this energy can lead to emotional isolation, impulsive destruction, or spiritual arrogance. If Jupiter is in Mula for Aries ascendant, ruling the 9th and 12th houses, and placed in the 4th house, Kendra, the native carries the wisdom of philosophical deconstruction. They may radically transform belief systems, serve as spiritual educators, or act as silent reformers of lineage values. This placement also supports ancestral healing. If afflicted, Jupiter may become isolated, idealistic, or emotionally rigid, struggling with reconciling inner truth and outer tradition. Suppose Saturn is in Mula and rules the 2nd and 3rd houses, for Capricorn ascendant, and is placed in the 6th house. This combination indicates karmic duty through discipline, conflict resolution, or service. Mula's energy pulls Saturn into transformational experiences in health, daily routine, or work conflicts. If supported, it builds endurance, silent strength, and an ability to reconstruct broken systems. If afflicted, it may bring chronic dissatisfaction, detachment from close kin, or emotional suppression under duty. If Rahu is in Mula for Virgo ascendant and Ketu is placed in the 7th house, the native is driven to break free from superficial relationship norms. Mula here intensifies Rahu's hunger for self-definition, making the native question social contracts and emotional attachments. If Ketu in the 7th is supported, it gives partnerships that are spiritually liberating. If afflicted, the native may struggle with commitment, face sudden breakups, or encounter karmic entanglements that demand soul evolution through separation. Finally, if the moon is in Mula for Taurus ascendant and rules the 3rd house, placed in the 12th house, the native's emotional life may revolve around spiritual solitude, foreign lands, or hidden grief. Mula here deepens emotional introspection and may bring intuitive gifts. However, it may also tendency to emotionally disconnect from siblings, early environment, or spoken communication, pushing the native inward toward silence, depth, and eventual liberation.